Hello, my name is Dan Humberg and I represent HarvestFires.com. If you're watching this, it's an instructional video to help you with the tin preparation for a Firestop kit. This particular kit is for a Case model 8240 or 8250 combine. The kit is interchangeable between those two. The exhaust systems are the same. This video will show you how to bend or fold the pieces of tin that create the enclosure around the exhaust system for that combine as a part of the Firestop kit. Before I begin doing anything else, I always give this cautionary statement that the Firestop kit is intended to stop the ignition of volatile dust at the exhaust components of the engine, the turbocharger, the exhaust manifold, the first part of the exhaust pipe after the turbo. And it does that job. However, I cannot guarantee that you will never ever have a fire on your combine or a smolder on your combine. There are many other potential sources of ignition on the combine. You can have a hot bearing, you can have an alternator that fails and throws sparks. You can have a friction point where you create enough friction on a pulley or something that will start a fire. However, this system is designed to stop the chronic fires that occur rapidly and frequently at the exhaust system in crops like sunflowers that have very volatile dusts. And it does that very well. Before we begin the actual folding of the tin, I want to talk just a little bit about tools for doing this and some lead-in for it. All right, you're looking down on my bench top here, and I'm going to show you a piece of tin. This is one of the pieces for the kit. It's 24 gauge galvanized steel. This one has its part number 2. All of these parts now have a part number cut into them somewhere, usually into a flange on the edge so that it won't affect the airflow parts. But this one, for instance, says C84 for Case 8240. It's my code for short code for the model number. And then there's a 2 with an underscore underneath it. The 2 is the part number in this case. And then you'll notice that there are dotted lines perforated by the laser that cut the part out, and those are the lines we're going to bend the piece on. The laser cuts a very thin kerf, the width of the actual cut. It won't affect the ability of the system to contain air and stuff, so we can bend them, and they'll bend preferentially right on those lines, and so that they'll bend up the way that we need to. You just need to know which direction and how much to bend these different parts, and so that's what this video is about. You'll also notice that there are screw holes cut here. There are some larger screw holes and then smaller ones. The outer screw hole is where the screw first goes through, and then the back screw is the pilot hole for the actual screw to bite into. And that will help you to know that you've got the right piece on top, because if you're putting the screw through, it should go through a larger hole first and then into a smaller one. But that's the way the parts are laid out. They're each numbered now. This one will have, I think, 23 different parts, but they all have a C84 prefix and then the part number with an underscore under the part, so that you know you've got it oriented correctly. I'll refer to the face with the part number on it when I tell you which direction to make the bends, so pay attention to that as we look at each part to say you've got it oriented the same way I do, and then when I bend it one way, you bend it the same, we'll get the same outcome. I use different tools for doing the bends. I have a little parallel jaw pliers here. It looks like a dinosaur to me, but anyway, it works very well for that. You could use a regular pliers for that, just a conventional pliers. I have a sheet metal pliers that I think I bought at Runnings, and so if you have one, great. If you don't and you're going to town, you might want to get one for this. It makes some of the bends a little bit easier. I have a wider 6-inch sheet metal pliers that I think I got at Harbor Freight. This comes in handy for some of them. I will point out, however, that most of these bends, many of these, for instance, all of the bends on this little piece, you can actually make with your hands. You don't necessarily need to have tools to do it, but they do come in handy sometimes. I also have this tool. I think I bought it on Amazon for like $16 or something like that. It has a slot that's cut 1 inch deep in here, and that can help to make some of the long bends. Most of my flanges are 1 inch wide. Some of them are wider, but many of them are 1 inch wide, and so this one would slide in right up to that and help you to bend that one easily. The other one is like a 1/2 inch flange. I don't have very many that are that small. And this one, I bought the longest one I could because I wanted help making the long bends, but you could get one of these that's shorter as well. I have one other method that I use to make a bend. I have a real long one. There are a couple of long bends for the biggest part of in the kit. Here I have an old piece of angle iron. It's a 1 inch by 1 inch by 1/8 inch, I think, angle iron. And I have a piece of strap that's bolted to it. You wouldn't have to bolt them together for the one to do 1 or 2, but I can slip the piece of tin in between these two, put this in the jaws of a vise, clamp it tight, and then bend the piece over the angle iron, and I can tap that if I need to with a hammer or mallet or something to flatten the bend out a little bit if I need to. But this works for those long ones. You can do it without. You can actually do it by hand if you needed to, or with the smaller tools. But this works for those long ones if you want a real nice, neat, long bend. And having said that, I think we can get started. The very first piece I'm going to do is with part number 1. It's the biggest piece in the kit. It's the top of the enclosure above your exhaust manifold would run here. You would represent the block here. Back at this point, you'd be the engine block. The turbocharger exhaust turbine will run right here. And then we have the exhaust manifold under here. So I've got 2 perforation lines here. One that's set in about 2 inches, one that's about 1 inch from the edge. I'm going to bend both of these. I'm going to bend up this way, but the first one I'm going to bend is the back one, the one that's farthest in here, about 2 inches in. I'm going to see if I can do that by hand just to demonstrate that. I'm putting it down on the bench top, and then I'm bending this up. And I'm only going to bend that up about 10 degrees for this one. That's all it takes. It's a very shallow bend. Okay, there we go. So I just bent that up, I don't know, so the back end is maybe at most a 1/2 inch off the bench when it's sitting flat like that. Sorry. This other one, the 1 inch flange, I'm going to bend with that long tool. And I'll turn you so you can see what I'm doing over here, but I'm just going to put this in the vise. Okay, so I made those first 2 bends. We go 90 degrees on this one, and then about 10 degrees on that one. And there's a 3rd perforation in here, and that one I'm going to bend. I'm going to bend down away from this top face. Sorry, should have showed you that with that pointed this way. So I have a 90-degree bend here, about a 10-degree up bend here, and now at this 3rd perforation, I'm going to bend that down until it's about the same 10 degrees that I bent this one up. There we go. It doesn't take very much for that. And now if we look at this part, I don't know if you can see that, but this is going to come away from the block, bend up, and then level out again. That's the idea. Now these bends are kind of approximate now, and you can adjust them later because they will fit up against other parts, and you can twist them or bend them a little bit to make them fit at the time of assembling it. So that's part number 1, 3 bends. If you're looking at the patent number, both of the back flange bends up 90, and this center part bends up from that little strip here, bends up about 10 degrees, and then we bend this piece down so that it levels out with this strip back in here, so about 10 degrees back down. Part number 1. Part number 2 is this. It's an end cap piece, you're looking at C84_2. It has 1, 2, 3, 4 flanges on it. I'm going to bend all of those flanges away from this space with the nut where you read the number here. So make sure you're looking at the number, the lettering correctly here, like this, and then we're going to bend this wide flange about 45 degrees. I'm going to bend this one with the part number on it the other way about 45 degrees. And the other two, the top and the bottom one, I'm going to bend 90 degrees. About 90 degrees. And this little flange as well goes over 90 degrees. Okay. About 45 here, about 45 here, 90, 90, and 90. All away from this face. Part number 2. Part number 3, C84_3. I'm going to take these two small flanges, about a ½ inch wide. I'm going to bend them down 90 degrees. I'm going to bend this large piece with the keyhole in it here. Oh, and I've already made a mistake. Okay, you'll probably make a mistake too, but if you follow mine, we'll get it right, I hope. I bent these the wrong way. You can get away with bending these wrong once or twice. Eventually they would fatigue and get brittle and break off, but you can bend them at least once back the other way. So let's do that again. We've got C84_3, and in this case I bent these two flanges up, the narrow ones up. I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to bend this center piece with the keyhole in it here up 90 degrees. It might actually be a little more than 90, but I think it's about 90 degrees. Close enough. I'm going to bend the one with the part number on it here then up from this face. I'm going to do that one actually a little more than 90 degrees. It actually comes over the up and back down in just a hair. About 10 or 11 degrees is what it actually is. This little bitty one on the end, we can bend that up. I'll do it by hand. That's a little hard to do, but 90 degrees. And while I'm here, notice I've kind of bent into a channel here with the part number here on top and this flange down, under, and these two bent down. So look at the part if you need to understand how to bend it. There's your part number. This keyhole will bend out just a little, just start it out about like that. 1/4 inch at most, probably. These two flanges, they're 1 inch wide flanges. You can bend them out, both of them out, but just barely start them, because we're just going to overlap another piece, and bending them out will help it line up with that next piece to overlap, but they do not get bent more than a couple degrees. That's part number 3. With the part number bent over the top here, the keyhole bent out, this one bent away from that face, the two little tabs bent up here, this one around that end, and these barely bent at all, part number 3. Part number 4 is very similar. It's an extension of this other part. If we're looking at the part number is cut into this flange, I'm going to orient it this way. It's on my left hand, your right side. I'll put it in. You might want to put it in your left hand. This center one is going to bend down 90 degrees. Having said that, I just did that one wrong too. Apparently I have a problem with those little flanges. Okay, so it's part number 4, C84 on this flange. That flange is bent away from this large face. See, I've got the C84 here, large face here. This one's bent up this way, and it's a little more than 90, about 100 degrees, 10 beyond 90. This one is about a 90-degree bend. The keyhole is bent down or out away from this, and this little one is bent down. This one on the end is down just a degree or two, again, like the last one. Part number 4, C84 4. Part number 5, C84 5. I'm going to bend the long flange with the part number on it away from this space. I'm going to try this tool for that one. This one I think I'm going to bend out this way. It comes to the up instead of down. 90 degrees. Okay, part number 5. We bent 1, 2, 3 flanges this way, 1 flange up this way. Part number 5. This is part number 6, C84 6. We're looking at that where I read that number correctly here. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 flanges. I'm going to bend them all away from this face. There it is, part number 6. Look at this shape. All of the flanges bent away from this face. I overbent some, and you can bend them back with your fingers. So I went a little past, now I can bring them back. Part number 6. Part number 7 has a single bend, single flange. Take the flange with the part number. I'm holding it in my left hand, and I'm bending the flange down 90 degrees away. Part number 7, C84 7. Part number 8, it cut the hole or the top of the 8, it fell out here, C84 8. We have this flange is going to bend down, this flange is going to bend down, this one is going to bend up, so I bent these 2 down. This one should also bend down 90 degrees. So like that. This wide flange on the bottom will bend out away from this face, but not 90 degrees. It's about 70 degrees. Roughly like that. We'll adjust it later to match the part that goes there. Don't worry about the angle too much now. It's about like that. Now these double flange here, we're going to bend the first one, the deeper one, back down 90 degrees, and then we're going to pull this little flange on the edge back out 90 degrees. Okay, you see that? We went a zigzag, we went down in and back out with that flange. And this one is another one of those that we only need to bend down enough to slide another piece on top of it. So any bend at all there is plenty. Not very much. Piece number 8. 2 down, this big one down, this one out 70 degrees, and then a 90 and a 90 on this one. Piece number 8. Piece number 9 has the 9 here. It's going to come up 90 degrees. So we're looking at the part number here, and this long piece is bent away from that part number, so there's your reference. So that one is bent up. Up at only about 20 degrees or maybe 30 degrees. See that? So we've got this cutout here, and we've got a little cutout here. This one's bent up about 30 degrees, and this one's bent up 90. Part number 9. Part number 10, C8410, has 3 flanges, one here, one here, one here. This wide one, I'm going to bend toward up. The other 2, I'm going to bend down away from this face. So this one comes up, these 2 go down. All right, that's part number 10. Has a wide flange bent out, and the other 2 bent to the other opposite direction. And that's actually going to tell you what angle to bend this one we just did. Part number 9 is going to mate to this. So we can now adjust the bend on this one. See how that fits? So that'll tell us what angle we should have had that one bent at. And there you go. Part number 10. Part number 11 here. We have a flange here to bend, one here to bend, and one here to bend. All 3 of those bends are going to go down away from the face that says C11 on it. I've got a cutout here on my right, your left. We're going to bend all these away from this face. Okay. All 3 90-degree bends bent down away from the face that says C8411 on it. Part number 12 says C8412. This one has a long flange, well, kind of a long, narrow flange. I'm going to use this tool because it has something that's just about right for that. Narrow one is bent away from the face that says 12 on it, 90 degrees. Now here we have another that we're going to bend a zigzag or a up and back bend. We're going to bend up at the deeper line here. So the 12 is going to come up, and then we're going to fold it back over that way. Okay, I'm not sure that we got the last couple parts, so I'm going to do those again. This is part number 12, C8412. All right, this is piece number 12, and I made a mistake when I first folded it, so I want to reinsert this video and correct that. Here's the part number on this flange. It says C8412, C8412 here, and that bends out away from this large face and then bends back over, but it'll still read C8412 on this now raised face. This wide flange bends out the same direction here, and this narrow flange bends over this same direction. I made a mistake and bent that one back the first time, so that's part number C8412. To bend it correctly, this comes up, this comes up, this comes up, and then goes back over with the part number on it. Notice these cutouts and how they're oriented on this piece so that you get it correct. Part number 13. Here's the 13 on this wide flange. We're looking at the biggest face with the 13 here, and the 13, reading correctly, is bent up 90. This narrower flange with the L-shaped piece on the end is bent over back 90. And this little one I started down just a little bit. That I think will adjust on the combine rather than now. I think it fits up against a flange. It has no holes in it, but it bends to adjust to fit, to close up a space. So just give it a little tweak now, and you can adjust it when you put it on to fit. Part number 13. C8414 has two flanges, here and here. If you're reading the part number C8414 correctly, bend that flange down and this one down, both 90 degrees. Okay, so we have part number 14. These two flanges, they're bent up if you're looking at it like this. They're bent down if you're looking at it like this. So we should read them on this face, right, bent up right behind these two slots. Part number 14. Part number 15. Part is on this long flange here. We have this flange, this flange, this flange, this flange, this flange, this flange. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They all bend 90 degrees away from the face that we're looking at here. So I've got this up here, got the part number here. All of them are going to bend away 90 degrees. Part number 15, all of the flanges bent down 90 degrees away from this face. Part number 16, single bend. You're looking at the 16, 90 degrees. Part number 16. Part number 17, the flange with the 17 on, we're going to bend out, but about like that, not 90 degrees, about 70 degrees. These other bends, you can start them back just like that. Part number 17. 18. The part number is on this flange. That flange and this one, this long one, will bend away 90 degrees. This little one will bend up 90 degrees. There's the part number. That flange is bent over. This one's bent over. That one's bent this way. And again, these, you can just start them by hand, and you'll bend them, adjust these on the combine to fit up against the diesel oxidation catalyst. part number 18. Part number 19, I'm looking at the part number here. I'm going to bend this flange and this flange with the 19 on it away from this face. Okay, we're looking at this face. This was part number 19. I got flange here and here bent over 90 degrees. Look at this face with this cut. I'm going to bend this flange out and this flange in. I've got two bends left here, this one and this one. Okay, so we have this taller piece, we bent back in here and then over again. So those faces are parallel, but we've got a jog in here. Part number's up here. These are 90-degree bends. Part 19. Part number 20 has two flanges, one here and here. The one with the part number on it, I'm going to bend down. The other one I'm going to bend out. This flange down, that one out. Don't do anything with these fingers for right now. Part 21. This little flange will bend out like this. I'm not sure about this one. We'll worry about that when we assemble the tin here on the bench shortly. '22 does not require any bends. 8422 right now we'll bend it on the combine when we need to. 23 doesn't have any bends in it. It's just a filler piece. Okay, that's the bends for a case model 8240 or 8250 combine. The next thing we'll do in the next video is to assemble the tin on the bench here to show you how they go together. I won't put all the screws in, but I will assemble it to show you how it structurally goes together.